Let me go, child. Let me go. I can't. I won't.
You cannot kill the devil, Tenno. But you can send it back to hell.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
Duviri. Very few words, if any, are as rage-inducing and divisive inside of Warframe. While yes, it does have its fans, and narratively it is a very impressive piece of content, especially when you consider it comes from a free-to-play masterpiece. However, that is not enough to spare it from the litany of complaints that the majority of players have about it. Welcome back to the channel, Wanderers. Today we'll be diving into the most controversial expansion that has ever come to Warframe. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it, and let's answer the question, what is Duviri? The Durviri Paradox was the 33rd expansion slash update in Warframe, and I believe it is the 4th open world added to the game. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I am wrong about that, particularly on the back end. But it is a paradox, as the name suggests. It is the opposite of the fast-paced shooter that is the traditional Warframe. In this mode, you are trapped in an endless loop, trying and failing to overthrow the king of the realm known as Dominus Thrax. Those of you who have played the New War will be familiar with this style of gameplay. As the Drifter, you do wield a firearm, however, it is similar to the Amp in that it is slow firing, but it is powerful. However, your primary weapon is going to be your melee weapon. Just like I said, the opposite of the traditional Warframe. Combine this with the lack of ability to utilize your Warframes and their subsequent abilities, and I'm sure you can begin to paint a picture in your mind of why a large portion of the player base can't stand this expansion. Narratively speaking, the setting is in a medieval setting, horseback and melee weapons. You are playing through an alternate version of your operator, as they have been seemingly mortally wounded by the floppy-legged bastard Ballas as your body plummeted into the tear he opened up into the universe. In contrast to the operator, the Drifter only has a firearm and his wit to use against Thrax as he attempts to escape Duviri and aid the Soul System. Now that we've set the table as to what the Duviri experience is, let's get into the major complaints that I have seen about the expansion and why it seems to be hated by such a large portion of the player base. I actually posed the question here on Reddit, and after about 200 responses that I went through, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of why this expansion invokes the feelings that it does in the player base. And one reason I've run across several times is its repetitive nature. Duviri was designed to be the first attempt at a roguelite experience that Digital Extremes had ever shot for. The idea being that every time you dive into Duviri, you start fresh, you get a new loadout of weapons, and a random Warframe that you use every run. You can even unlock the ability to bring your own Warframe in from outside of the dimension. However, the idea being as you complete objectives, you gain buffs, working your way up to the final boss, which is the Aura Worm. After slaying the final boss, you are returned to Teshin's Cave, where you get to spend your resources and intrinsics that you have earned on that run, and then you get a new loadout, a new Warframe, and you pretty much repeat the entire process over again. A big issue that I continue to see in the comments of my post are that, in addition to the game mode being repetitive, it's just not rewarding enough. you get an item called Pathos Clamps after slaying the Aura Worm, as well as doing some side objectives. And you use these to buy the new Duviri weapons, as well as cosmetics and things of that nature. However, you don't normally get that many Pathos Clamps per run, not that I've seen at least. As a matter of fact, in one of my comments, I had someone mention that to get everything in the new Duviri expansion, it would cost you about 990 clamps. This would take you, assuming you didn't do any extra Undercroft objectives, this would take you 67 runs. So I can kind of understand this aspect. I understand, say Warframe's your favorite, your favorite game, and you really like the idea of the Duviri rewards, and as I understand it, the circuit has some pretty great rewards, and you feel like you hate Duviri, but you feel forced to dive in again and again to get the full extent of the rewards offered. I understand how it would be, exhausting and would be frustrating. However, these last few reasons that Duviri is gaining hate are reasons that I think are a bit outlandish, unfair, and they're just overall reasons that I don't necessarily agree with. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that people don't like the Drifter melee system. They say it's not well done, it's clunky, and it's a big deal to them because they look at the sister title coming out, Soulframe, and they think to themselves, well, listen, if this is the way melee combat's going to be in Soulframe, I don't want any piece of this. It's not good here, it's not going to be good there. And I have to say, I vehemently disagree. I know my gameplay in the background doesn't really do it any justice, but understand that I actually played through the Durviri Paradox story, and then I quit playing Warframe for really since Durviri Paradox came out. Not because I have anything against Warframe. I was just, my personal life, I didn't really have time to game like I used to, and I'm just jumping back in now, and I've missed the game quite a bit. So, my struggles in the background, as embarrassing as they may be, is nothing bad about the Duviri experience, just my, return gameplay that I haven't played for a while. I think the Drifter combat is very well done. Could it be better? Sure. I'm not a big fan of the Sun and Moon weapons. I haven't really unlocked another melee to use with the Drifter, but I think they feel very, very, they're good for what they are. Just the dual weapons are not my forte. But the melee combat for the Drifter is going to be a nice segue into the biggest complaint that I have seen about the Duviri experience, and that is that players do not like to feel forced into not being able to play a Warframe. They, sign into Warframe to play Warframe, and I recently, when I dove back into the game, I actually got my wife into the game, which is awesome. But she's seen me play a bit of Duviri. She actually watched me film this video, and I know a comment she made while I was playing. She said, "This doesn't even look like Warframe," and I can agree with that. With that in mind, I am about to trigger a portion of the Warframe community in saying this, that a large amount of the people who do not like playing as the Drifter or do not like feeling forced to play as something other than the Warframe are people who enjoy that very fast, twitch shooter. They want to go into a mission, they want to go into an exterminate, a capture, whatever, and be a 2-minute mission, in and out, get your loot. And I understand that. It's a very effective way of farming. But for me, I've been playing this game for 10 years, off and on. Probably even closer to 11 years. And for me, I've just outgrown that way of thinking. I feel I like to take my time in the missions. I love the Durviri Paradox. It actually makes you slow down and think about your actions, think about what you're doing. And on the flip side of that, I understand there's people who've been playing the game just as long as me, stuck in their ways. They've been playing that lightning fast gameplay mechanic for 10 years, and that's all they know, and that's something they really enjoy. But what I am about to say that I think will be so triggering to the people who do not like the Drifter combat and the Duviri experience is I've seen so many comments saying, I wish this was not part of the game, I wish this would go away, I wish they would stop moving in this direction for the game. And in my opinion, I think that's foolhardy. I think you're out of luck because the Drifter / Operator has been in the game since the second Dream back in 2015. It's been in the game almost 10 years at this point. It's not going away. That being said, the last thing that I see that people complain about the Duviri on the flip side of that is they don't think that Digital Extremes committed fully when it came to the Durviri Paradox, because they obviously wanted to do this roguelite, soul style-ish type of gameplay when it came to the Duviri dimension. However, they also included the Undercroft, in which you can play as a Warframe, and I feel like I'm not alone in thinking this, that it was done intentionally to appease a larger majority of the player base. That way, the people who really wanted to play Warframe still didn't feel like, oh man, I'm just going to avoid this title completely because I can't play as a frame at all when I sign into it. And I absolutely agree with this statement. I think it falls under the fundamental truth of, in terms of gaming, in terms of entertainment, and even just life in general, the rule that when you attempt to cater to everyone, you absolutely cater to no one. So, I know Warframe has just the best player base in gaming, but I just feel like that's what makes Duviri so controversial, is that it had a split focus between trying to cater to the roguelite fans with slower paced combat, as well as it didn't want to commit fully, so it wouldn't leave its Warframe ways behind, at least temporarily. And Duviri is not the only piece of content that suffers from this lack of commitment. Warframe is littered with pieces of content that have no follow-up expansions and have not been committed to. Railjack is another great piece of content that I'm going to make a full episode on, that seems to be hated by a large portion of the community as well. And one of the big reasons why is just like with Duviri, they don't go full commitment. They will add pieces of just standard, regular Warframe missions inside of Railjack to appease to the average Warframe player. Don't get me wrong, I think the game is incredible, and I think it's taken it up a notch, especially since Rebecca has become the lead. But one thing I think drives me crazy is the lack of commitment. You see so many times content being added and then abandoned. It's almost like the game's as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle. But overall, still, I'm excited to be back, excited to be a part of the community. That's going to do it for me, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.